On today's show, the Cavs get another win, this one over the Memphis Grizzlies, and it's important not because they won, but because of how they won. I'll tell you why on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That is $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins with FanDuel. The Cleveland Cavaliers moved to 47-10 on the season with a win Sunday night. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies 129-123. They did so without Darius Garland, and winning a game against a really good team, which Memphis is a really good team. I don't buy them as title contenders, but they're 37-20. They're in second place in the West. They're having a really nice season. They've got a lot of really good players. We will talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. and his battle with Evan Mobley for Defensive Player of the Year. We'll dive into that. But beating a really good team without I think there's a case that Darius Garland has been the best player for the Cavs this year, but winning a game against a really good team without that guy in the lineup, I think is a big accomplishment. But what I think is a bigger accomplishment for the Cavs is the way they won this game. Not that they won it without Darius, but the way they won this game without Darius. So we've come to know the Cavs as a team that is an offensive juggernaut, and they didn't have, I guess, a bad night offensively. They weren't really good offensively. They did not shoot the ball well. And that's the thing that stood out to me, particularly in the first half. So Max Strus hit a three-pointer to beat the halftime buzzer that, put the Cavs, I believe it put them up by 6 points at halftime. And that was the first three-pointer that someone other than Donovan Mitchell made in the game. Donovan at that point was 3 of 6 from beyond the arc. The rest of the Cavs were 0 of their first 18 from 3. And that means typically not good things for the Cavs. When the Cavs don't shoot the ball well, and this is not a Cavs specific thing, this is an NBA specific thing. When NBA teams don't shoot the ball well, they don't win because you need to score points to win. So when the Cavs don't shoot the ball well from beyond the arc, they're typically a much more beatable team than when, say, they're shooting 40% from deep, which is what we've become more accustomed to seeing because they are such an offensive juggernaut. So for them to have a game where they really struggled to shoot the basketball, they finished the night, and of course they had a better second half shooting than they did a first half because it would have been hard to have just as bad of a second half as they did a first half and continue to talk about a win here. But they finished the game shooting 27.7% from beyond the arc. They were 13 of 47. Donovan Mitchell had 4 of those makes on 8 attempts. So that means the rest of the Cavs were 9 of 38 from beyond the arc. Sam Merrill did hit 1. Ty Jerome hit 3. I will talk about Ty Jerome, the great night he had. Max Strus hit 3. Evan Mobley hit 1. Isaac Okoro hit 1. So it was just not a very good night for the rest of the team shooting the ball beyond the arc. And the Cavs are a much more susceptible team to a defeat when that's the case. And the fact that they were able to find other ways to win is really what stood out to me about this one. Because defensively, they were okay. They were not great. Memphis shot the ball well. They were 15 of 39 from deep. They shot 45% from the floor. But what the Cavs did in this game is they rebounded. They rebounded the ball really, really well. Memphis came into the game as one of the better rebounding teams in basketball. They've got a lot of size. They start 2 bigs, just like the Cavs do. They start Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. I think they've got a little bit more size on the wing. Not that, Desmond Bane is great on the wing and doesn't have a super long wingspan, obviously. But I do think that they start a bigger starting lineup than what the Cavs starting lineup is right now and I guess tonight changes things because Darius Garland was not in it, but the typical Cavs starting five. And they rebound the ball really well. The Cavs are an average rebounding team. Kenny Atkinson before the season talked about wanting to put an emphasis on offensive rebounding, and that really hasn't necessarily come to fruition. And part of that too, when you have this conversation about maybe not rebounding misses as frequently as you would like, is the Cavs don't miss a ton of shots. Like they're second in the NBA in field goal percentage. They are the best offense in the league. They don't miss a lot of shots. And when you don't miss a lot of shots, your offensive rebound opportunities, of course, are limited. Well, on Sunday night, they had 22 offensive rebounds. That was the reason why they won this game. They won this game not because they were a better team offensively. They won this game because they took more shots. They had 99 field goal attempts compared to 92 field goal attempts for the Grizzlies. And that was a really big deal in this game. It's not a game, I think, that they find a way to win unless they're able to attack the glass the way that they were. Memphis had 37 total rebounds. The Cavs had 57, so they out-rebounded them by 20 period. But the fact that they had 22 offensive rebounds in a game where Memphis had only 25 defensive rebounds. So the Cavs rebounded almost half of their misses, right? Like that to me is the crazy thing, because that's not who this team has been. Jarrett Allen deserves a ton of credit for that. Evan Mobley deserves a ton of credit for that. He had 4 offensive rebounds. Max Strus had 4. Donovan Mitchell had 2. Dean Wade had 3. DeAndre Hunter had 2. Ty Jerome had 2. So it was a team effort. And to me, that is one of the things that stands out about this, is that when somebody goes down, and Darius Garland, and he was listed with a hip injury too for this game, but I don't think that it was really ever in the cards he was going to play. He was not present at shoot around when the media was let in on Sunday morning. He did not go through his pregame workout. Like, it was not some surprise when the starting lineup came out that, oh my gosh, Darius Garland's not in that. Like, this was not something that caught anyone off guard. But for the rest of the Cavs to step up and play the way that they did in his absence, especially by being able to do the little things, I think to me that's the sign of a really great team, because good teams can win basketball games. And we've seen the Cavs won a lot of basketball games. They're 47-10. But great teams can find ways to win basketball games in different ways. And that's what the Cavs did on Sunday night. They could have easily shot 40% from 3 and just outscored Memphis because they've got a lot of offensive weapons, and that's who they are. That to me would have been a little bit less impressive than what they actually did, because they had to to steal a phrase from what Memphis used to be, they had to grit and grind their way through this game. And that is something that you'd like to see the Cavs do. Not that they are going to win a championship doing that. Like, they have to play their best to win a title, and this was not the best style of basketball for them. But I think that you need to be able to win games in various ways, because guess what? When the playoffs arrive, whether it's against Boston in the conference finals, or maybe it's against Indiana, Detroit, or Milwaukee in the second round, or maybe it's even against Orlando, Miami, I don't know, Brooklyn, Chicago, Atlanta, one of those teams in the play-in currently in the first round, the Cavs are not going to be at their best offensively in every single playoff game. Like, that's just not a realistic thing to expect. Should they be more often than not playing really good offensive basketball? Yes. But every game? No, that's not a fair thing. That's not how playoff basketball works. So to be able to win a game like this is something that you would like to see be able to be something that can be translated to the postseason. We don't know if it can, but the fact that they can do this in the regular season, I think, should give you the faith that this is something that could happen in the postseason. They could theoretically win a game just like this one in the playoffs. And guess what? In the playoffs, when you win games, it doesn't matter how you do it. The only thing that matters is that you do it. Like, this was a really physical game. And I think that when you combine this with what the Cavs did on Friday night against the New York Knicks, where they just absolutely blew the doors off of New York, I think you have to be really, really happy with the way that this weekend went for the Cavs. I don't think it could have gone better. Of course, you would like to see Darius Garland not be injured. You'd like to see the Cavs play a little bit better offensively on Sunday against Memphis. But overall, the fact that they won 2 pretty big, important games, I think that when we, looked at going into the All-Star break and coming out of it, it's like, okay, there's a couple of tests. Those first 4 games coming out of the All-Star break where it is not first 4, the first game not counting. So sorry, Brooklyn. But getting past that Brooklyn game, the next 4 games after that, so you got New York, you've got Memphis, Orlando, and Boston. You look at that as, okay, this is a little bit of a testy stretch for the Cavs. The fact that they're 2-0 through it and they've won 2 games in 2 different ways, despite the fact that, again, they didn't have one of their best players. They didn't have an all-star point guard. They didn't have a guy who I think should be an all-NBA player this year. The fact that they got a win like that against a team that is number 2 in the Western Conference. Is Memphis a title contender? I don't buy that, but they're a really good team. And the Cavs found a way to win this game in a way that, maybe it was a little bit more stressful than it should have been down the stretch. But overall, I think you have to be really, really pleased with that. And I do think also you have to be pleased with, in particular, the way Evan Mobley played. He made a statement on Sunday night, and we're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. Because they swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When a player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. That's a nice little 12-hour window for you to save. Maybe you stayed up late watching this game where someone scores 50 points. Maybe it's a West Coast game. You're in Cleveland or somewhere else on the East Coast, and you're like, man, I could not take my eyes off that game. So you wake up, you go to work. Oh, my goodness. I didn't have time to pack a lunch. What am I going to do? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to sign up for Dash Pass, and then you're going to get 50% off an order, up to $10 off that next day. It's not only going to be satisfying for your stomach because you're going to get some really good food, but it's also going to be satisfying for your wallet because you're going to save money, and satisfying for your eyes because you got to stay up and watch a guy drop 50 the night before. So everybody wins when you do this. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When a player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And make sure you're subscribed for the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That is LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Cavs newsletter. Evan Mobley was awesome in this game. He finished the night with 25 points for the Cavs. He had 13 rebounds, 8 assists, close to a triple-double, also had 3 blocks. Was a +9 in the 36 minutes that he played. Did it on 10 of 20 shooting, and of the 10 misses that he had, 7 were 3-pointers. He was 1 of 8 from beyond the arc, just didn't shoot the ball well from deep, but he did everything else really, really well. And the thing about this game was always going to be, well, it's Jaren Jackson Jr. versus Evan Mobley, the 2 defensive player of the year favorites, because of course, earlier last week, Victor Wembanyama, who was the heavy, massive favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year, was ruled out for the rest of the season. He's not going to hit the 65-game limit, which means that race is now, I don't want to say wide open, because I really think it's a 2-horse race between the 2 guys that we saw Sunday night in Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson Jr. But I thought it was important for Evan to come out and make a statement and be the better player in this game, and he absolutely was that. Like, there was no doubt. If you watch this game, you came away thinking there is no question that Evan Mobley had a better night than Jaren Jackson Jr. did. It's not to say that Triple J was bad. He wasn't. Scored 22 points on 50% shooting, but he only had 3 rebounds, which Evan Mobley, I thought Evan did a really good job defending him, and I don't have the numbers on, like, the matchup-specific numbers, but it felt like Jaren Jackson's, the work he did offensively came against other guys, because it wasn't as if these 2 defended each other the entire time. Like, there were some moments where Evan was playing the 5 and Jaren Jackson Jr. was playing the 4 because Zach Edey was on the floor. So Evan was defending Zach Edey because the Cavs didn't want to have Dean Wade or DeAndre Hunter defending him. So it wasn't as if everything both these guys did was against each other. It wasn't a game of one-on-one. It was a game between the Cavs and the Grizzlies. This was just a nice subplot. It was a nice little story on the side. But this was one where I thought that Evan Mobley probably made a little bit of a move for Defensive Player of the Year. But because it's not just that he outplayed Jaren Jackson Jr., it's that he outplayed him on a nationally televised game. It's that he was better defensively, I thought. It's because he rebounded the basketball. Partially also, his team won, and that mattered. And the fact that Evan Mobley hit a really big shot in the fourth quarter too, I know that isn't something that's going to go into the Defensive Player of the Year, criteria. That doesn't matter for that specific award, but he stepped up when his team really needed him. And the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr. only played 25 minutes in this game, not because it wasn't good, but because, and if you remember a couple of years ago when he won the Defensive Player of the Year over Evan Mobley, one of the big reasons why that was close was because of the foul trouble that Jaren Jackson Jr. always found himself in. He had 5 fouls in this game. Like, he was not able to be available for his team because he kept committing fouls. And that is something that Evan Mobley just doesn't do. Like, Evan Mobley got called for 1 foul in this game, and what was a really physical game. And it's not because Evan Mobley's soft. Like, that's not true. That's not even a little bit true, but it's knowing how to play with contact as opposed to overdoing it. And I think that is one of the things that Evan really has done a great job with, is that he knows how to be physical. He knows how to use contact, but he also knows how to not get called for fouls. And I think that is not just as important as being a really good defender, but it is a really, really important thing when you think about being a good defender. It's that, okay, you also want to be able to control when you're going to hear a whistle and when you're not. And this was a game that there were a ton of whistles. Like, I think there were 51 personal fouls called. The game took over 2 hours and 41 minutes. Like, it was absurd. Courtney Kirkland and his officiating crew were not my favorite. I don't think they were anybody's favorite on Sunday night. That's both Memphis and the Cavs. Taylor Jenkins, the head coach of Memphis, got a technical foul. Kenny Atkinson, the Cavs head coach, got a technical foul. I think each team was called for 3 technical fouls in this game. Like, it was just not a fun game in terms of the officiating. And I think both fan bases would probably agree with that. But with Evan, he made a statement, and he didn't get in foul trouble. Did he have his best offensive night? No, but he was the better player in this game. And we're seeing that more and more from him. And I just really think that what we've seen from Evan Mobley lately on both ends of the floor, both offensively and defensively, is something to really, really be excited about. I just really think that he is starting to figure it out. And the leap that we saw earlier this year, and I don't want to sit here and talk like, oh, he's done getting better, because that is so far from the truth. Like, I think that this guy has a long way to go still. I still think there is a lot of potential to untap with him. And I do think there's a chance that the leap Evan Mobley made from the start of the season to the All-Star break, which was they've played 54 games. I think there's a chance that in the final games of the season, the final, that would be 28 games that they play. So from the All-Star break on, I think that the leap then could be just as big. And what we're going to see from Evan in the playoffs, I think tonight was kind of a little bit of a preview. And he's not going to go 1 of 8 from 3 every game. Like, he's going to shoot the ball better than that, which realistically, he could have had 35 points in this game. That would not have been a crazy outcome. If you play this game 10 times over, he probably has 30 plus more than he has the 25 that he had. But I think we're going to see more games like that. And one of the things that is going to determine ultimately where this Cavs team goes in the postseason is just how good Evan Mobley is in that postseason. And if it's anything like he was on Sunday night, even the poor shooting night aside, I think you should be really excited about what that looks like for the Cavs, what that looks like for Evan Mobley, because he was awesome in this one. He really, truly was. I thought that I don't know that I want to call him the best player on the floor because I think Donovan Mitchell was special. And I probably don't spend enough time talking about how good Donovan Mitchell is because we just expect him to be great. And it's, he goes out and scores 33 points. It's like, oh yeah, that's Donovan Mitchell. That's what he does. He scored 33 points on 23 shots. He was great. He had 6 assists. That's who he is. Like, we don't talk about that because there are other surprises. There are other developments. It's just like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell's great. But I do think that he probably deserves more credit than we give him. But Evan Mobley was really good in this one too. And despite the fact that the rest of the Cavs did not shoot the ball well, and Evan Mobley didn't shoot the ball well from deep either. But when Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell combined to have the night that they had, yeah, the Cavs at that point are a tough team to beat. It's kind of funny because in some senses, the Cavs played a game that probably they shouldn't have won. And then in other senses, like, yeah, well, when that happens, they're really difficult to beat. One of the things that does make them really difficult to beat is when Ty Jerome has the night that he had. We got to talk about that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action, well, it's just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. Plus, if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. FanDuel's live betting feature keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three like, I don't know, Evan Mobley did on Sunday. You never have to feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And when you win, because I do want you to win, you get paid instantly. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com to join today for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Just got to win that first $5 bet. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you hit on that first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show on YouTube. If you're watching right now, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Ty Jerome was awesome in this game for the Cavs. So he finished the night with 26 points in 23 minutes. He scored 14 of the first 17 points for the Cavs in the fourth quarter. Like, he took over the game for the first, 4 or 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. It was just the Ty Jerome show. And on a night without Darius Garland, this has been a really common theme for Ty this year. And there have not been many nights where one of Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell have not played. Like, those guys have been very available all season long. They've not dealt with injuries. Donovan has rested a couple of games. But for the most part, those guys have been out there every night. But on the nights when they haven't been available for whatever reason, whether it's bumps, bruises, injuries, rest, whatever, Ty Jerome has stepped up. And Ty Jerome has been awesome. And that's exactly what happened on Sunday night. He was fantastic in this game. Now, he dealt with foul trouble early on. He picked up, I think, 3 fouls in his first shift and had to check out before the end of the first quarter. And we actually saw some Craig Porter Jr. minutes in the first half of this one, which I think was partially because of that Ty Jerome foul trouble, where instead of him being able to play extended minutes, he didn't necessarily get the full minutes load that Kenny Atkinson would have liked for him to have in the first half, but he more than capitalized on that in the second half. So he finishes with 26 points, 4 dimes, 5 boards, 9 of 16 shooting, 3 of 7 from deep, which he and Max Strus were the only guys other than Donovan Mitchell, as I mentioned earlier, to make multiple 3-pointers. This was just a really, really big boost for the Cavs on a night when they needed a big boost because they didn't have Darius Garland. Now, Garland did miss the game with a hip injury. I mentioned earlier, it wasn't the most surprising thing in the world that he didn't play, but Kenny Atkinson did say after the game that things are trending in the right direction for Darius. He didn't promise that he's going to play Tuesday night in Orlando, but and maybe he won't. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. I don't have the answer to that. But I would be, at this point, I would be very, very surprised if Darius Garland doesn't play on Friday night in Boston. And that is a game, and I'll have the whip around episode, talk to John Corrales from Locked On Celtics. That'll come out later today. But that is a game that I find fascinating. Like, that is a game that I think is really important. I think there are real stakes to that game. I think that is sort of like the last big regular season game the Cavs have this year, is that game against Boston next Friday. And Darius Garland, unless he, I don't know, plays on Tuesday and something happens to him then, but I would be stunned if he's not at least at the very latest back by Friday. But the fact that when he's out, they can have Ty Jerome step up and play the type of minutes that he played in this game and put on the type of performance that he put on, like, that's just such a big boost for this team. Also, do want to shout out Jared Allen, because he was a big topic in the locker room afterwards in this game. So his stat line didn't blow anybody away. He had 13 points, 10 rebounds, 6 of 8 from the field, was just 1 of 4 from the free throw line. He did have a wrap on his index finger that he left the game with against New York on Friday night. So that is something to watch. But he just comes in, does his job, does not complain, doesn't ask for the ball more, doesn't do anything that guys typically his caliber of play do. Like, that is something that I think a lot of guys in that locker room really, really appreciate. And also, you know, I know Jared Allen has gotten knocked the last couple of years for maybe a lack of toughness that I don't necessarily buy all the way. Like, he got, you know, they didn't lose that Knicks series because they couldn't rebound. They lost that Knicks series a couple years ago because they couldn't score. But Jared Allen and Evan Mobley get blamed for that because they got out rebounded. And I get it to an extent, but also, like, if they just make shots, it's a non-story. And then last year, of course, Allen was really good in the first 4 postseason games and misses the next games, the remaining, 8 games that they played after that with that rib injury. So everyone wants to call him soft. Well, he's played in every regular season game this year. Like, he has played through things. I think at times probably would have been beneficial for him to sit down for maybe a night and rest and get his legs back. But I think that he's done a great job answering the bell this year. And he did it again Sunday. He played through an injury, played really well. And I just think that deserves, at the very least, maybe not a full segment, but that deserves a mention, because I think that he's an easy guy to root for. And I think he's been awesome overall for this team this year. So like I mentioned, the Locked On Cavs whip around will be coming your way later on today. That is, if you're listening to this before like noon or 1 o'clock. I haven't decided what time it's going to go out. Kind of going to depend on what time I sleep into, because it's 2:35 in the morning as I record this right now. So that will be coming your way later on Monday. Talk to you, Philip Rossman-Reich of Locked On Magic and John Corrales, Locked On Celtics. Those are 2 teams the Cavs play this week. Did not dive into the Portland game at all. Just kind of I think these 2 Eastern Conference matchups are really important ones. So make sure that you are subscribed everywhere you get your podcast. If you listen to the pod on Apple, subscribe on Spotify too. Costs you nothing. Helps me out. Do it for me. Come on. That'd be nice. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I will be back later with the whip around. And then after that, we'll be talking about the trends for the Cavs on tomorrow's Locked On Cavs.